Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Okay, we are from fifth group and we will explain about the problem fictional and non-fictional and then characteristic of fictional and non-fictional and how to write to interpret those texts. Okay, here will we I tell my friends first is I'm Sheila Yuralesi Fishamanda and my friends the other is Renaldo Jeffrey Mahendra and then Riris Puspitasari, Fitra Aulia Ramadan, Cici Krisnawan, Fadila Nirum, and then Rasti Dwijayanti. Okay, for the first explanation is about the definition and then will be explained by me. I'm Sheila. Okay, I want to tell or explain about the what is fiction. Okay, before it's come to the differences between fiction and non-fiction. Joseph Salvatore. Okay, associate professor of writing. What's the name? Right, association professor and writing and literature at the New York School in the New York City. He says he teach a course on the facts, okay, theory and practice of fiction writing, and in it we discuss this topic all the time. Okay, okay. Although all of the ideas and theories are what's the name uh, dispute and challenged by writers and critics. Okay, and then some basic components of fiction. Okay, then fiction is fabricated and based on the author imagination. Okay, then fiction is based on author imagination. Okay, for the detail again, I will explain the fiction is it's oh no the example of fiction is it's like short movies, novels, myth, legends, and fairy tales. All of them is what's the name considered in fiction. Okay, while setting plots, points, and characters in fiction are sometimes based on real life. Okay, and for the next, there was also science fiction and fantasy books placed in imaginary world often take inspiration from the real world. Okay, for the detail of explanation about the fiction is term based on denote anything, mainly stories of account that are not real. Okay, that's mean fiction is based on imagination by author, and then fiction also is mainly stories or account that are not real, okay, or imaginary. Okay, like Abram 2008 said, he explained fiction is as any literary narrative, whether in prose or verse, which is invented instead of being, of account and even that actually happened. Okay, therefore, any forms fiction is any form of narrative which deals in part or in whole right events that are not factual but rather than are imaginary and invented by its author. Okay, for the what's a simple explanation or simple definition by fiction is that's our story about the imaginary by author. That's in fiction is tell it is not real, but by imagination by the author. Okay, for the next explanation, I will explain about the part B. It is literary fiction. Okay, what is literary fiction? Okay, literary fiction is not rigidly defined term, but most work of literary fiction. Okay, it must include several things. They are, for the first is character focused on narrative, ample symbolism, metaphor, and allegory. Okay, for the next is advanced vocabulary infused with imaginary. No, I mean imager. Okay, for the next is ambiguous plot points, including even the word's conclusion, exploration of large philosophical terms regarding the human condition and will of nature. Okay, and for the and will of nature. Okay, and for the what's the last is lack of adherence to a fixed plot formula. Okay, I think it's enough, or just it that I can explain about the definition and what is literary fiction. Is I think will be continued by my friends. Okay, thank you.
Okay, I am Cici Krisnawan. I wanna continue the material. Step to write fiction books. 1. Understand what you are writing and why. Before you put pen to paper or finger to your keyboard, you must know what are you doing. Firstly about yourself and then about the reader. This is consider your potential readers. Number 2, feel your creative well. Where do you get your story ideas from? This is one of the most common questions for the authors and one I used to struggle with, and then you must follow your curiosity. Number 3, write a story, not just a pile of words. Professional editors Harry DeWolf recently told us about the biggest problem he finds with manuscripts from first-time authors. So even if you have read thousands of books, it's still hard work to write a story that readers love. And consider what you love about your favorite books as a reader. Use classic story structure to expand on your ideas too. Number 4, write a character that people want to spend time with your fiction. Because characterization is often listed as one of the fundamental elements of fiction. Don't forget, use one main characters. Number 5, what happens, why, and where. Once you have a character and you have considered what they want, why, and where will happen, otherwise known as the setting, and to make easy, use setting to bring conflict to your plot. Number 6, get words on the page for your first draft. The reality is that everyone starts with a first draft, and most authors would never show that draft to anyone. I think this secret for the authors. And the last, 7, writing is rewriting. So, said Michael Crichton, author of Jurassic Park and many other incredible best-selling books, this is particularly true when you first start writing fiction because there is a huge gap between the books that you love and the pitiful first draft you have created out. Then you can let go of any sense of judgment over what you write. I think enough and will be continue with my friend.
The material nonfiction. The difference between fiction and nonfiction literary works
of fiction are works that are not based on true fact. Typical fiction appears as narrative thinking of great novel by the likes of Mark Twain. The contents of nonfiction are rooted in the event, although many mm, nonfiction books offer strongly opinionated commentary on those through even think of author George Will.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I am Fitral Ramadan, and I am from Group 5. And I will explain about how to write non-fictional book. The first thing that you must to do before you write the non-fiction book is get clear on what you want to achieve with your non-fiction book. Before you embark on your writing journey, you need to know what you're going on this journey in the first place. What is it you want your reader to know? What do you hope to make them think or feel or do once they've read your book? Do you want to explain a topic that you're passionate about? Or do you want to share a story that will inspire or guide your reader? When you know what you want to achieve with your nonfiction book, you'll be amazed at how many other pieces of the puzzle fall into place. And the second thing is understand the subgenre of nonfiction you're going to write. Once you know what you want to achieve with your book, you need to figure out what kind of nonfiction book you're going to write. There are different subgenres of nonfiction. The one you choose will determine not only what you're going to say, but also the way you will say it. And the third thing you must do before you write your nonfiction book is choose the structure for your book. If your main aim is to tell a story, you need to decide how you want to tell that story. So you need to create a plot structure. Examples of plot structures are the traditional 3-act structures and manipulating time. The traditional 3-act structure, here you tell the story in chronological order. You start with the beginning or the setup act. You're essentially setting the scene, introducing the protagonist and describing the event that sets the protagonist's story in motion. The middle part, or the confrontation act, describe the protagonist's journey and the obstacles and characters they encounter along the way. In this part, you may also introduce an antagonist. And next is manipulating time. With this structure, you start your story somewhere in the middle and then use flashbacks to tell your reader how it all began. You can also jump forward to future events and then go back to an earlier point in time. This structure is especially effective when there's a risk that your reader may lose interest in the setup and just wants to know what will happen next. And next, the circular structure. Here you start your story with the climatic event that would normally come at the end. You then go back to the beginning at the middle, describing what led to this climatic event. At the end of the book, you reiterate the climatic event and tie up the loose ends. And last is the parallel structure. With these structures, you're telling two or more stories at the same time. Each separate story has its own beginning, middle, and end. You can weave the stories together or tell them separately, but at the end you need to tie them together. And the fourth thing that you must to do is draft an outline. Now it's time to draft your outline. This is important since it will help you ensure that you cover everything you want to say. An easy way to draft an outline is to follow these steps. Write down the main parts of your book structure, and now consider each part separately, and look at all these subpoints and see what you can combine. And next, decide in which order you want to discuss each subpoint. Next, decide how much space you want to give each subpoint. And the last is, remember your outline is not set in stone. And the fifth thing that you must do is choose your style guide. A style guide is a set of guidelines that will help you be consistent in your writing. It can cover anything from whether you'll be using the first person or the second person to little details like whether or not to write out numbers. And the last thing you must to do before you write your non-fictional book is write. Once you have an outline, you've actually done most of the difficult work. With a style guide to help you take care of the little details, it's now only a matter of getting your ideas on paper or in your computer. So, pour yourself something to drink, get rid of distractions, sit down, and get writing. I think that's enough from me. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Okay, the next is non-fiction writing techniques. How to write informative non-fiction. Some readers steer clear of non-fiction because they think it is just a collection of boring old facts with nothing exciting happening. That is really just because they have not read a good non-fiction book yet. Non-fiction can be just as much of a thrill to read as fiction, maybe even more so because you know that what you are reading about has really happened. So, the first non-fiction writing technique is remember the story. For you as a non-fiction author, the challenge is not just to choose a story to tell, but also to choose a story that your readers will find compelling. What you find interesting may not necessarily be something that will appeal to readers, so you need to think objectively about the story. Is it interesting to you because of who you are, or is it interesting because of the story? The second is set the scene. Any story, even if it's true and even if it's not really that compelling in itself, becomes instantly more compelling if you set the scene. You want to draw your readers and make them feel like they are right there with you. They are not going to feel much when you simply say that you went to see the bank manager. They are, however, going to feel like they are part of the action when you describe the bank manager's office. The next is bring your characters to life. One of the elements that every good story has in common is the lifelike characters that populate it. Everyone you're talking about in your book is a character. Your readers want to know about each of these characters. What do they look like? What are they wearing? What do they sound like? And others. The next is beware of TMI or too much information. While it's important to set the scene and describe your characters, it can also detract from the story if you give too much irrelevant information. It is one of the quickest ways to lose your readers. So think critically about what you include in your description. The next is remember dialogue. In writing nonfiction, you may be reluctant to use dialogue. You need to stick to the truth after all. However, there are ways to incorporate dialogue without losing credibility. You might find quotes from interviews, transcripts, court documents, and the like. The next step is use plain language. Using plain language doesn't mean you are dumbing down your message. You can still explain complicated concepts now, however, you are doing it in a way that your readers are more likely to understand. Some of the basics of using plain language in your writing are: use the active voice, use simpler words, avoid jargon, use shorter sentences, avoid normalization. After that is remember your research. While nonfiction tells a story, it's ultimately about facts. To have any credibility as a nonfiction writer, you need to be able to back up those facts. Even if you are writing a memoir, you need to get the facts right. And after that, dig for deeper truths. Nothing in the world just is. There is always a reason why things are the way they are. When you dig for the story behind the story, it can give you more insight into your message. And when you understand the message more clearly, you'll be better able to explain it to your readers. And the last is add the final touches. Once you've written your first draft, it's time to add the final touches to your book. You need to get edited, sort your illustration, have the layout and cover design done, and have a provider give it the final once over.
Okay, now I will explain about characteristic of nonfiction. Characteristic of nonfiction text includes the presence of a table of contents, heading, caption, diagrams, chart, graphs, a glossary, and an index. Additionally, the subject of nonfiction are real and not imagined or made up as the subject in fiction are. And another characteristic of nonfiction is the presence of a narrator who is a real person and often the author of the text. Nonfiction texts are also written for specific audience and purpose, which heavily influence the information that is included in the text. The most common types of nonfiction are narrative, expository, descriptive, and persuasive. And next, I will explain about genres of nonfiction books. First is history. Historical nonfiction consists of true account of historical era and event. Some histories when purely and objective facts, and other histories are refracted through the lens of the author's personal beliefs. And the second is biographies, autobiography, and memoirs. Biographies are written in the third person about someone other than the author. And autobiographies and memoirs are written by the subject themselves. And the third is travel guides and travelogues. Travelogues are a close cousin of memoirs. They recount an author's specific experience, and travel guides tend to be more instructive, offering suggestion and practical information travels bound for a particular destination. And the fifth is philosophy and insight.
This genre runs the gamut from traditional philosophy to scientific theories to analysis of scientific or cultural phenomena. And the sixth is journalism. Journalism is most regularly consumed in the form of newspaper and magazine, TV news, and more. Journalism report on true events that typically but not always have relevance to a contemporary audience. And the last is humor and sentiment commentary. These subgenres are forms of creative nonfiction where analysis and reflection on real-world events are distilled through the prism of an author's point of view.
Okay, make a good plot, character, and setting. And first plot. Stanton states that plot is a story which contains even but those characters are important element in a story. The importance of those elements on character function plays a role thus the story can be understood by reader. The character inside the stones will carry out the plot. Stanton in Stanton Nurgiantoro said that plot is story which contains series or events, but every event is connected just by casual relationship and other events. Plot and character are therefore interdependent critical concepts. Therefore, plot is series of events and it is played by the character. The character and the plot could be spark it is connect one of each other. Okay, and the next character. The character in literary work usually are imagination, but those characters are important elements in a story. Character in fiction can be conveniently classified as major and minor. Static and dynamic. A major character is an important figure at the center of the story, action, or theme. The major character is sometimes called a protagonist or the main character of the story. This character opposes the protagonist or is pitched against him or her in all cases and situations. And type of character and protagonist, antagonist, flat character, and round character. And next setting, Abram explained that the overall setting of a narrative or dramatic work is the general locate, historical, time, and social circumstance in which its action occurs. The setting of a single episode or scene within the work is the particular physical location in which it takes place. Basically, there are two types of setting, physical setting and historical setting, also involves in both literary work. Therefore, plot, character, and setting are the important element in building a story in literary work. The opposite of the exposition, instead of getting ready to tell us the story by introduction, the setting, the character.
Okay, next conclusion. Fiction is fabricated and based on the author's imagination. Short stories, novels, legends, and fairy tales are all considered fiction. Step to read fiction books, they are understand what you are writing and why feel you creative well. Read a story, not just a pile of rocks. Read a character that people want to spend time.